Okay, good evening, everyone. I am going to apologize in advance. I have been fighting a cold all weekend and I'm about 80% there tonight, so we will see how long this lasts. But I've got tea and I've got what looks like Mountain Dew, but is actually just filled with water right now. So hopefully that's enough between that and some meds that I've been drinking today. I'm hoping to be good enough to get through all of this tonight. So, a couple things on the agenda for tonight. Was going to go through and show off some Logic App stuff that I did over the weekend while being horribly sick. So, I apologize. The quality of code is probably down here somewhere. But I think the end result is kind of cool. Figured I would show it off. Just so if anybody else is curious how I'm doing this, you can see it too. And then I was going to dive back into the material design and XAML stuff. We've had a bunch of pull requests open that I wanted to get reviewed, and then I'm trying to snipe off as much as the 3.0 stuff and probably look at the MaApps integration library because right now it is horribly broken. And I think looking over the remaining changes that they have for 2.0, I can probably get most of it back up and working, so anybody on the preview NuGets can start working with that again. So I apologize for being broken for such a long time. So with that said, let's dive in and have some fun with some Logic Apps. So on a prior video, I walked through what I was doing with my Logic app. So this one here triggers whenever I upload a new video to YouTube, which every time one of my streams ends, usually the first thing I do is I click export, and then usually the next day I go through and set up all of the metadata on YouTube and hit flip the thing public, right? And so flipping the thing public is what ultimately triggers this off. And then there's two things that happen. One, this guy comes down here and goes and takes the video ID and puts it in an Azure queue. We're going to come back to this one in just a minute. This other one I think I mentioned before. It goes through, builds up some messages based on the contents of it, sets some tags based on the contents, fires off a tweet so that I don't have to worry about going out and actually tweeting out that, hey, I've got a new video out. And then it sends me an email with basically the same information that went out to Twitter, just so that I can, if anything goes wrong, I'd like to be notified so that I can go and delete the tweet if, like, this Logic app falls horribly apart and tweets something I didn't intend. But this one over here is what's more interesting. So this goes and puts the message out on a Azure queue. So then what is an Azure queue? Within Azure, there's a resource type called a storage account. And as the name implies, a storage account is a place where you can store anything. It's basically a generic, I need to put some data somewhere. And there's kind of four big areas. You've got containers, which just kind of hold arbitrary blobs of data. You can set up file shares. There are tables where you can put tabular data. And then there are queues. And we're going to look at least three of these. But for now, let's take a look at the queues. So this guy here was dropping a message onto the queue, and the message text was literally just the YouTube video ID. So when looking at YouTube, the video ID, and we can actually pop this up real quick, YouTube, ketokaboo.com. So we'll just go and look real quick. So this guy redirects to my channel. And if the internets are all happy, so for example, last week's video, the ID is this little bit right here. So in this case, it's for you VCZ blah 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 blah, right? So that's all the data that's getting dropped onto this queue. Now on this queue, go away video. Why will you not disappear? Thank you. So putting a message on the queue is great, but something then has to take the message off the queue and do some work with it. Enter a second Logic app. So we've got this one over here called YouTube Processor. And its job is to process things on the YouTube videos queue. So once it thinks about its life for a moment. Okay, so the first thing it does is it watches the queue. Every 10 minutes, it's basically just checking and saying, hey, you got a new message, you got a new message, you got a new message. For the purposes of doing this, I don't really care about a high level of accuracy, so 10 minutes, that's probably even more often than it needs to pull. I could turn this down more, but this seems slow enough that it works fine. Goes through and initializes a couple of variables. So it grabs the video ID from the text of the message that was on the queue. It initializes a couple of variables. This partition key we'll get back to in just a minute. Subtitle contents are empty. That's just basically a new string variable where we're going to put stuff in a minute. And then we go through and we start working with the Azure tables, one of those other ones from the storage account. So in this case, we've got a YouTube's videos table. There's a partition key, which in my case, that's not the partition key. I'm just hard coding. Now, in general, you should probably break this partition key up and separate it, but I'm going to have so few of these things. At some point, I should probably do something better, but for now, because I have so few rows that are going into this table, I don't really need to partition them much. And then a key for the row, which in my case is going to be a video ID, because YouTube ensures that these IDs are unique, so I can guarantee I'll get nice uniqueness there. And then my entity, which is just a JSON object. So in this case, it's actually doing an insert. You can think of it as insert into a table with effectively 3 columns. We've got a partition key, a video ID as the row key, and then I'm actually storing the video ID again as a explicit column. Okay, and so this is an insert or a merge entity. So in general, when a new video is created, this is probably always going to be an insert. But there's nothing stopping me from going through, if I need to, say, reprocess a video, just dumping that message onto my queue and letting this thing kick off and pick it up again. So if I do end up needing to reprocess something, I can do so. And so this will just merge the information in, which all of this should be duplicated anyway. This basically just ensures that the data exists in the table. Okay. We then pull the entity back out of the table, and the only reason for doing this is in the case where the entity already existed in the table, I want to actually, there's a few other columns in that table that I want to pull from, and so this just pulls that updated entity back out. And then this takes that entity and parses it, and as you can see, there is a JSON schema here, and so it's actually looking for, there's several bits of data. The interesting one that we're going to look at here is this subtitle Blob URI, and then the video ID that we populated and a playlist which is currently unused. Okay, we come down one more thing. We populate our Blob path from the Blob URI out of there, and then this is where things get interesting, is we actually have some conditions here. So in this case, it goes through and it's basically doing a is null or empty check on the Blob path. So it's saying if the blob path is equal to null or the length of the blob path is equal to 0, so string is null or empty basically, we're going to do one of two things. So if we've already got a blob path, actually let's real quick, before I get too carried away, let's jump back here and look at that table that we were pulling from. And I've already jumped out too far back. So back into the storage account and let's go look at that table. Since we just showed what was there. Oh, Storage Explorer is the magical place where you go. So we can come over here and look at the table. We can pull open this table, and we can take a look. So there's our partition key. I've already processed one video. There's a timestamp that you get on there. Subtitle Blob URI, which is a relative URI for it, and then a video ID. Okay, so exactly the same type of stuff that we already saw before. Okay, back into here. So if it already has a blob path, it's going to go through and get the blob contents out of blob storage. So it's going to go looking for this blob path. So you recall here, this is the blob path here. So subtitles / video ID. Right? So if we go through and look at my blob containers, you'll notice underneath here there is a subtitles container, and this contains a bunch of blobs. In this case, there's one here that is filled with all of my blob data. And we can pop this guy open, and this is just the raw subtitle track from YouTube. Okay. So this guy just goes through, pulls down all of the pulls the subtitle text right out of Blob storage. But what if this is a brand new video and we don't have any of the subtitles yet? So this is where it gets more interesting. So it kicks off to an Azure function, because why not make this more complex, right? So I've got an Azure function that I've written that goes through, and let's pull, I thought I had the code up for it real quick. I do, it's just on my other screen. So in the same repository where I'm keeping the subtitles themselves, and I will drop that in chat. That guy there also contains the code for this. So if we look at, not underneath subtitles, subtitle converter, download subtitles, this guy here contains all of the code for going out and creating an Azure function that just downloads the subtitle track. So this function takes in a request for the video ID, goes up, creates a new YouTube service, and then pulls down the SRT caption track for it. So it just goes out, looks for it, pulls it down. So that's all this does, and then it just dumps the contents straight back out in a 200 response. Okay, so I can zoom that in a little bit. Nothing too fancy. The hard part here is just getting all of the Google Auth stuff figured out, which is sort of a pain. But the key parts there is all of the auth stuff is stored in secret environment variables that are then passed into the function itself. Okay, so this guy then, on success, it goes through and sets the subtitle contents, this same variable that was declared up here. It gets set from the body of this Azure function. So same thing here, this guy was just setting it, but from the blob contents. This thing then goes through and creates a blob underneath subtitles using the blob name of the video ID and populating it from the contents. This guy then goes through and sets the blob path, and then goes through and updates our item in the table. So same partition key, same video ID, but you'll notice now the entity that I'm inserting or merging also contains the subtitle blob URI. And that goes through there. Finally, if we've gotten this far down either branch of this, we go through and delete the message off the queue. So if you just act on the messages from the queue, it won't ever actually remove the item from the queue, and you'll just keep spinning forever. The key thing here is you just need to pop it off with the same queue name. You get a message ID and a pop receipt. As long as you pass those, it'll then delete the item from the queue. But if any of this stuff fails higher up, I don't want to actually delete it. I want this thing to keep basically circling until it gets around to processing it. The most likely failure case is right in the download subtitles. YouTube has some rate limiting. Every API call has an arbitrary units cap, and downloading subtitles is like 200 units, and I think you only get 10,000 a day, which is not too hard to hit. If you say point it at like a whole playlist of videos and say go, you can run out pretty fast, which is part of the reason for this whole caching of the blob stuff. So once I've downloaded the subtitle track from YouTube, I'm not going to go back to YouTube and ask for it again. I'm just going to use my cache stuff. And if I ever need to re-download it from the cache, I'll just blow away my blob and delete the item out of my table, and away we go. Okay, last but not least, now that we've done all of this work, we've gotten the subtitle track cached, because this whole mess here is all about downloading the subtitle from YouTube and getting it in blob storage and updating my table correctly. That's all this logic app has done so far. And ultimately, the end goal is I want to get this subtitle track converted into Markdown with hyperlinks back into my original video, so that I have a way of easily searching through these videos when I'm looking for content, where it's one of those, somebody asks a question, it's like, oh, I know I covered that and I was kind of talking about this. How do I find it? Well, conveniently, there's a wonderful website that you can host Markdown files in that lets you search. It's called GitHub. So this is probably one of the most hacktastic ways to get a file into GitHub, and I am very open if people have other suggestions, but this was the easiest option I could think of. So I have a DevOps account with a release pipeline. And so this guy here invokes my release pipeline and passes through a couple parameters, video ID and subtitle URI, basically pointing it at the blob path so it can download the blob from my blob storage, and then also giving it the ID of the video. Technically, I could probably infer one from the other, but I didn't want to have that type of coupling in there, right? So what does the release pipeline do? This update subtitles does two things. One, it goes through and calls the converter, which is the code that is inside of boom, this same repository. If we back up a couple levels and dive down into subtitle converter, there is a little command line app. This is the same one that I showed off on a previous stream, but I updated it with a few more parameters and probably need to clean a bunch of it up because it's kind of a mess now. But the two new parameters are video ID and then subtitle URI. So both of these guys here are the new ones. And the key part here is if these two guys are set, it short circuits all of the extra YouTube API calls. Doesn't bother with any of that. It downloads the subtitles from the URI, and then it goes through and pulls out the video information, and then just converts these guys into Markdown, following the same pattern and the same Markdown conversion stuff that I had before. So a little bit of refactor in this code. You can go read it if you're interested. Just converts the SRT subtitle stuff with a couple regexes into pretty Markdown, right? So that's step one. Step two then goes through and just does a git commit and push to the repository. So then the end result ends up looking like, if we jump back up to the top, underneath the subtitles folder, I now start getting a bunch of Markdown files with the video ID that you can then click on and poof. The very first link is a link to the video itself, and then each of these lines are segments in the YouTube video. They're usually about 5 seconds long, give or take a little bit. And you can see that some of the stuff like Hacktoberfest doesn't translate real well. So I've got thoughts and plans of ways to improve this and do translations using Azure Cognitive Services. That'll probably be a future one. For now, this is just my quick and dirty way of searching for stuff. My old subtitles that I was hosting previously were dumped into a MDIX and a system command line one because that's where they were at. But I'm thinking going forward, I'm probably just going to dump everything into one bucket because most of the time I can't remember exactly what the primary purpose of my stream was. And so having to search across both of these and figure it out is like, meh, I'll just dump them all in one. So if anybody wants to search my videos for some bit of content, I recommend just going to this repository and hunting for them. So yeah, this is simply a repository for me to, ooh, that's embarrassing. Let's just fix that typo real quick. For me to store captions. Wow. Fixing. It's really bad. Like I said, I've been fighting a cold. I can't be held responsible for my bad spelling tonight. Okay, so there's that. There's logic apps. They are totally cool, totally awesome, and they are cheap too. So for anyone who's running an MSDN subscription, I don't know exactly what the cost is on these logic apps have been so far, but I think it's under 10 cents. So it is incredibly cheap to go through and process these. Now, obviously, if I start having this thing do a lot more subtitle processing, I'll be curious what the total runtime gets up to because it's now moving a little bit more data. But the storage and the logic app processing has been minuscule. So very, very much recommend this. I think these things are the coolest things ever. So, but there is blob storage, tables, queues, and yeah, all the cool stuff. Sweet. Okay, so now on to material design. I got to remember exactly where. Oh, and if you were interested, this is what the commit ends up looking like. I prefixed it with Azure DevOps, automatic update of subtitles, and it added in a file for me. So it just worked. Huzzah. Okay. Okay, we will come back here and let's get my master updated, because we've had several stuff that got merged in so far. There's been a lot of pull requests, so I think there's a couple of these pull requests I probably want to go back and look at real quick, and then we'll circle on to the Ma app stuff, I think, because there's some good stuff out here that should probably get. Make theme styles link to files. Oh, this one excites me. So there is an Azure DevOps pipeline that triggers on every commit into master that goes through and runs a PowerShell script that updates this file right here. So underneath the wiki, the control styles list, this file, and this guy here, you'll notice there's this auto-generated file, do not edit. Because if you edit this directly, your change is only going to live until the next commit into master, and then this thing gets blown away every time. So it's basically doing a force push right over the top of whatever's in there. But as you can see, it goes through and generates out a whole bunch of just showing off all of the individual styles for everything that is inside of the library. So you can see anything with this default style means that there is an implicit style targeting this type. But this list is nice, but what I was really hoping for is to have this list ultimately become a list of links that you can click on and dive back into the source code. Because sometimes seeing the style name is nice, but actually being able to look at the style code itself is even better. So that was the end goal of what we were shooting for here. So this guy here, so links to files containing the styles should work. So this one I want to take a look at because this looks cool. So this grabs the latest hash, file path URL, points it in, link style and theme. Oh, this excites me a lot. This excites me a lot. Okay, so let's go through and let's just check out this pull request. So 1470, because this was one I was hoping somebody would pick up for me, because I am not great with PowerShell. I use it, and it's nice and it's wonderful, and I will not claim to be an expert at all. Okay, so we got that guy open. Let's see, I can kill you from running now. Let's flip you over to Material Design Toolkit. Come on over here, and let's go and take a quick look. So this guy here is scripts and run, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, this script doesn't take any parameters. I think it just executes and creates a file locally inside of here. Let me just double check that. Pretty sure that's the way it works. Oh, thank you. Release notes. I'm sure you have awesome stuff. Let's see. So yeah, it doesn't take any parameters. Blah blah blah. Generates stuff. Output file name generates right into the local directory. Great. Perfect. Okay. So run with PowerShell. Lots of execution, doing stuff, lots of running. I wonder why debug output is on by default. That's interesting. I assume it's generating. Yep, great. So let's open this with VS Code. I have a Markdown viewer installed as one of my extensions. This should give us a nice look of what this does. Great. Show me the preview pane. Yep. I don't know why you think remote WSL is needed for Markdown. Nope. Go away. it doesn't do the link on the default styles, but it does do it on all of the named ones. Cool. Go ahead and open the link. Sweet. So this gets pretty darn close. So now if we are able to strip out the... If we're able to get the line numbers out of where it's done the parsing, I believe it's just something like line 25. Yeah, so it'd be great if we could do like line 25 through 30. Right? Is that the syntax for it? What is the... When in doubt, just do it in the GUI. Oh, line 25 through line 30. Okay, got it. Got it. Cool. So I think we're going to merge this, but I'm probably going to leave the ticket open because two things I would love to see is, one, I would love to see hyperlinks on the default style ones as well, and then I'd also love to see these hyperlinks have that line number syntax. And I believe, let me just look this up. Well, hang on, I may have done this already. Let's go through and look. I think I did this 1380. I really wish GitHub would let me, like, it's linked these items together, but it doesn't let me click on it, which is really kind of frustrating. 1380. Yeah. So this has the information for the git hash stuff. Yeah, and this is the line number link. Oh, and I guess it's probably difficult to get the closing tagline number. So if we could at least get the starting tagline number, that would be nice. Yeah, so this gets pretty close. I believe what you can do though is the parser for the XML. Let me look at what this guy's using. I believe you can turn on getting line numbers with it. Again, I think the script appears to be just fine, and this is a significant improvement over where it was, so I think we're just going to merge it, but I think I'm going to leave the item open for it. Let's see, get content, XAML string. Where is the XML parsing? Link in style, sort by, blah, 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 blah. Right, output file, set defaults. Was this just regexing it? No, it is pulling. Okay, there we go. I was going to say, I could have sworn there was XML parsing. Let's look this up real quick. PowerShell, XML, line numbers. Because I believe in the XML parser there is a setting to be able to go through and turn on showing line numbers. Hey, look at that. Looks like I was searching for this before. Let's take a quick peek at what there is. Let's see. For each, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This is just auto incrementing. I don't think that's quite what we're after. Don't think that's quite what I want. Let's see here. So what is this doing? So move history for each object, new object, PowerShell line object, line under status, time. So this is just iterating over a collection of objects and auto incrementing a value for the line number. Okay. See here. And this is getting close-ish. This is just adding it. Why? I feel like it's missing the XML part of my query. There is a way on the XML parser in .NET. Maybe that's the kicker. C# XML current line number. This is probably what I'm thinking of. This is probably more akin to let's see. IXML line info, blah blah blah. Oh, blah blah blah. What you can return line info. Yeah, because this is interesting. Okay, well, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time digging on it, but regardless, we're going to take this. So let's see, and you go into the 3.0 milestone because that's what we're working on. Squash merge, squash merge. Okay, that's done. Let me just refresh here and make sure this is cleaned up. This has been partially completed. 2 more items that would be nice to add. Links for the default style. Links to exact numbers in the source. Cool. So if anyone wants to dig into that, let me know. That would be cool. Again, and hopefully, with any luck, after that guy merges, I'm going to leave this open. Because in a little bit, I should be able to hit refresh and see the updated bit there. Okay, next. Updated Readme. This is probably a simple one. I'm not surprised, and I appreciate people who have given me this. Let's see. You'll need from 2017 to 2019. That looks... Really? Is it because this is one big line that it won't show me the diff? Looks like that's the only change. Great. Let's see. Good catch. Thank you. Not that milestones really matter on Readme changes, but we'll take those as well. Again, I appreciate everyone who helps out with the documentation on this because that is always one of the hardest things to keep up to date. Icon update, Azure Pipelines. For those who are unaware, there is also an Azure pipeline that runs nightly. It goes out and downloads all of the latest icons from the material design icon set. So the preview NuGet packages should be no more than about 24 hours off. I usually just double check to make sure there aren't any breaking changes. So for example, I see a deletion here for search, but I see that it was really just moved down here. There are technically probably breaking changes as the material design icon library changes the contents of icons, but that doesn't happen too often. But be aware, there's not a great way for me to check for those because I do not want to go through and diff the look of every single one of these icons on every single pull request or even every single release. So I try to document when there's breaking changes to the enum for the pack icon kind, and then I just let it go. So if there are breaking changes to you from this enum value, those should be in the release notes. Let's see, squash and merge. And we can delete the branch. We don't need it sitting out there. Great. Just killing pull requests left and right. Let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. Let's see, filter chips. I think I looked at this one before. Magnus was working on this, and yeah, if you're watching this, Magnus, the look of what you've got so far looks great. I checked the source code. Everything I see there looks fine. All of my outstanding items and comments on there, you've already indicated of what still needs to be done. So if you want any help with this, let me know. Happy to jump in. But overall, it looks like this is well on its way. Okay, let's see. Let's grab this guy up here. So adding track background to switch toggle. This one's probably a simple one. Let's go through and I think the easiest way to do this is to just check it out, build and run. So let's see, PR 1460. Pull request 1460. Yes. For anyone who is ever managing open source projects in Git Kraken, if you go to check out a pull request and the branch that it's coming from matches one of your existing branches, that's when you get this prompt. It's just saying that it doesn't know what to create. It is worth knowing, especially as you start checking out multiple pull requests. Every time you click on one of these, the little prompt that came up at the beginning was basically just asking and saying, hey, do you want to add a remote to that person's repository and check out the branch? It's like, oh, yes-ish. I kind of wish there was an option for just check out the current stuff without, let's whack this file so it quits showing up. I kind of wish there was an option for check out branch, but do the a shallow clone without adding the remote, because I really don't want it tracked. I guess sometimes I do, but it would be nice if I could just not accumulate all of these remotes. Okay, so let's just fire off the demo and we'll see where that goes. Visual Studio probably takes a moment while it figures out what it did. And I think this roughly matches what I expected from it. So under the toggle button assist, switch track background, okay, takes in a new brush, which is great, which lets you change the color. So this before, let's see, so it's defaulting to primary hue light. So let's just verify that that's where it was before. So this is now defaulting to the switch background. So before it was defaulting to that, but only on checked. I'm wondering, is this correct? Pass switch background. This is this fill. I'm wondering if this should be. Oh, this fill was black before. Ooh, does this mean? I think this default is wrong. I think this default should probably change. Yeah, I'm thinking this default is probably off. Because this means that the background is going to be the primary hue light brush for both checked and unchecked, and that is not correct. this looks correct, because this is the way you can't use a template binding to an attached property. You have to do the long binding syntax with the relative source. Yeah, just this difference between this fill here and this fill here, I think, is the big kicker. So we might just go fix that real quick. But let's see here. So this guy is properly defaulting to black. I'm wondering if that's correct. I think that's actually what I put in the issue text. Let's see, 1408. Refresh. And let's go pull that issue up real quick. So I think that's what I put in the issue text, is for the thing to default, but the intention was for the default to be set in the style setters, not in the attached property. Oh, come on, run. I should go and look and see what the trigger is for this. It could be that the trigger on this guy is set late and runs once a day. Let's see, add new attached property. Oh, it should default to black. That's exactly what I said. That was dumb of me. This new use this new attached property in the fill for rectangle. Blah blah blah. Got it. Great. Let's take a look. Come on. I thought we said go. Come on, Visual Studio, you can do it. Was there a build error of some kind? Detected package downgrade. Oh, what is your problem? What is your problem now? Packet. Some days you make my life hard. Open PowerShell window here. Let's see. Dot packet. Let's see. I think it's install and then restore is what I need to get out of this. I was messing around moving stuff in different branches, and I think I left myself in a very bad state. The other option is git clean. And then let's see. Why do you think you are on a preview version of C#? Yeah, you shouldn't be on a preview version of C# anymore. Figure it out. There you go. Okay, and that should have gotten us out of that situation. It does worry me that I've got this many errors cropping up. And I guess not errors, warnings. Turn the warnings off for a minute. Detected package downgrade from 4.6 preview 7. Why do you still think it's there? Pretty sure we just said turn you off. Okay, close. We just did this. Shut down Visual Studio. Don't have time to think about you. Git clean DFX. Torch the earth. So be very careful with this command. Git clean -dfx basically says reset my repository into a clean checkout state. So delete all files that are not under source control. So this will whack your bin directories, your obj directories, your package directories, all of those. So you'll note a ton of these things get cleaned up. All right. The convenient part is it's a great way to get yourself back into a working state if you've gone and messed something up. But also be aware it's going to throw away all of your pending work. So use with caution. Make sure all of your stuff is pushed to GitHub before you do anything crazy. Like run that command. Okay. Now hopefully you're a little less unhappy with me. Yeah, because you'll notice it whacked my .vs directory, so it's forgotten how to collapse things. Because reasons. Don't know why you still show yellow triangles. I'm hoping that's just the restore that's not happened yet because the packages directory was nuked. But it should rebuild, and then packet should do its thing as part of the build process and restore everything. And then I suspect show me the XAML will complain because this will be its initial install. So for those who haven't heard me talk about it before, our demo app uses another library that I've written called Show Me the XAML. You do not need it. I've seen a lot of people copy the code out of the demo app and just blindly paste it into their applications. So unless your application very specifically needs to show people the XAML for a particular control, you don't need the library. Okay? It's only there as part of the demo app to make it easy for people looking at the material design controls to copy that corresponding XAML out and into your own application. So if you're going through the demo app and you're like, oh, that looks pretty, I'd like that. Well, you click the little XAML icon in the bottom right-hand corner of it, and it'll give you a little pop-up with all of the text that you can copy out, and away you go. So works great. It's wonderful. But if you're just copying from the source code of the demo app, you can omit that. You don't need it. Okay? Just grab everything inside of it, not the control itself. So just be aware of that. The problem is on a fresh clone of the repository, when you first download that NuGet package, because of the way Packet works, the Show Me the XAML runs as part of the build pipeline, but if it's installed as part of the pipeline, it can't actually run on that same initialization run. So what it does is it actually throws an error and says, please rebuild one more time. So hopefully that is the error that we just got here. Yeah, Show Me the XAML was added to the material design demo project. Please rebuild the project. So as the name implies, the correct response is rebuild one more time. Because once it's downloaded, then it'll be added as part of the build pipeline, and away you go. I am, as best as I know with my knowledge of MS Build, there's not a way around this problem. Just with the way Packet works, injecting itself as part of the MS Build pipeline, there's no good fix for this. If you add it as a NuGet package, you can get around it a little bit, at least within Visual Studio, because Visual Studio will do a NuGet package restore before the build, which means it'll get picked up and won't require a rebuild. So if anyone has suggestions, I'm open to it, but so far that's the best I've got, where it kicks an error and tells you to rebuild it. Again, it's only the very first time on a clean clone of the project where it has to re-download the package. So if the package is already there, you're good to go. Or if you do something like me where you do a git clean dfx where it blows away your packages directory, yeah, it's going to re-download it. Going to re-download it. It might grab it from the NuGet cache. I'm not entirely sure on that one. I don't quite know how Packet does its NuGet resolution, whether it always goes to the web to download or whether it will use the local cache. I have not tested that. Come on, build, build, build. I just want to go and fix this so we can merge some more pull requests. And a big thank you to everybody who's been doing pull requests for Hacktoberfest. It's been awesome to see all of the work come in from everybody. Even on other repositories that I manage, I've been seeing tons of pull requests come in. It's actually been kind of ridiculous how quick some issues have gotten picked up. I was joking with a coworker. We filed an issue It took 20 minutes for somebody to find the issue, fork and clone the repository, fix the issue, and submit a pull request. He was absolutely shocked. It was 22 minutes from the time I opened the issue to the time we received a pull request. It was amazing. It wasn't necessarily that big of an issue to fix, as Hacktoberfest issues are designed to be, fairly confined and well documented as far as what needs to be done. And it was an easy-ish one to fix, but just the fact that somebody picked it up and had it fixed in 22 minutes was shocking. So this bug here with the black on black text, that's only because this pull request is a little bit older. If it was based on latest, that would be fixed. Okay, so let's go here. I believe it's in toggles. Oh, and this is the other bug. That was the other bug that we should probably fix. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we are going to take this guy. I don't know if I need these. Did you actually change anything, or did you just update? I think you're just being a pill because of the update. So we're going to close Visual Studio real quick, because I think Visual Studio is going to be unhappy. I think I'm just going to take this pull request and rebase it onto master, because I want to pick up those extra fixes. Because I believe one of these here, did I not fix it? Oh, there, this one. This is, well, so here's the binding redirect, but I updated the C# code on Avalon Edit. I updated to the latest stuff, and I apparently never pulled in that change. Oops. Let's fix all of this real quick. So thank you, Jasper, for the binding redirect. That was very helpful. We'll rebase this guy up onto master. That'll get us at least working. Okay. That'll get us working. I want to circle back to that. Show me the XAML issue after this, because we should adjust that. We shouldn't need the binding redirect. And I think because of my local development state, I was just never hitting it. That is the problem when you are the builder of both libraries. Sometimes there are extra states that if your CI system doesn't catch it, you'll never pick it up. It would be nice at some point if the App Center distribution gets a little bit nicer for like the live testing. I would love to build some UI tests and run it through there, but that is wishing and dreaming that App Center for WPF gets feature parity with the mobile stuff. So here's hoping. Okay. Go, go, go. Recompile, rerun. Now we should be able to work. That does surprise me a little bit. If this thing was crashing like that. Oh, I think I saw some chatter between this guy and Jasper where he had probably just copied in the app config change to his local deployment. That's probably what happened. Because I think he's the first one who actually bumped into that binding issue. I'm a little surprised it took so long for it to be found. I might need to do a post-mortem on that and figure out exactly what the condition was. Because ideally that's something I would like for the test to actually catch. I might have to write some basic Appium tests or Selenium-based tests that just go through and fire up the demo app and just walk through all the pages and verify that the app doesn't crash. mean, that would catch at least some of these errors. The question then is how to run them effectively. I don't know if I can run those inside of a build pipeline. So you'll know, look, text is right again. Huzzah. Okay, back to our toggles. And more importantly, let's look back at this guy and figure out which of the changes it was. So, let's see, switch toggle with track background. So it's probably the last one in the line, but it's got a tooltip. Great. So this gets us pretty close. Problem is, let's see, magnifier. That, I mean, that kind of works. What? How is that? How is that not picking up that color change when it's off? Is there like an opacity that's also set? Let's go and look. Because I sort of expected, given that that brush was being hard-coded to the light brush in both cases, that it would get picked up on both of them. So let's see, toggle button. And let's just look real quick. The change was down around line 335. Boom. So okay, so let's multi-line some of this stuff because this is getting hard to look at. So collapse you. Let's move some of this stuff around so we can see what we're doing. This just needs to get moved around. Moved around. If anybody is interested in pulling in XAML styler, I would not mind getting this set up so that we get a very consistent format across all of our XAML files. Okay, with that said, this feels like there's a trigger or something firing on it that's changing the state. So thumb holder, this changes the translation, so it's not up there. That's not doing it. It's got to be a trigger. So is checked. Changes the fill, changes the foreground. Indentation's off there. This guy down here. So this guy, well, this is probably okay because this will give it a very doled out black color. I think what we want to do, I'm still very confused as to why this is supposed to be picking up the background. This is supposed to be picking up the background. Why do I not see the background changed here? Something's not lining up with what I expect. Because I would have expected this to be the default. And then when this trigger fires on is checked as true, I would expect it to get set to the exact same thing. Tracks fill property gets set. Foreground property gets set. Fill property gets set. Okay, I am confused. I do not understand how. Okay, everybody's favorite Snoop. Because I don't know. I do not understand how this is basically working. Which bothers me a little bit. I do not like the fact that it appears to be working despite the fact that the code doesn't appear to be doing what I expect. Okay, so you sit over here, you sit over here. So, for example, I want to dive in right to here. Okay, so there's my thumb, donor decorator track. There's my track. What's your fill property look like? Ah, data error. That's why it's failing. Cannot get switch. Invalid cast. Switch back. Unable to cast. Cannot get with type solid color brush from type string. Something is amiss. Let's go and look. Solid color brush. Solid color brush. So why do you think? Oh, because this is a ha 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 ha. This should be this. That's the bug. Okay, so this is what the binding should have been. But I think this binding is wrong. So I think what we're going to do is change this up a little bit. Because the other thing I would like to do is turn off this opacity. And put it as part of the brush color. I believe that's what we want to do, because if we put it as part of the brush color, then that'll allow people coming in to set this color with anything they want, rather than being forced to take this color wholesale. Does make for an interesting use case. We'll get to that in a minute. Toggles. Wow. Part of me wants to alphabetize this list. See, now we're talking. Now this is working the way I expect. See, that's now pink. And it's pink on both on and off. Which isn't quite right. So I'm fairly confident that that was not the behavior before. Let's just confirm that. So previously the code was, we can just reset this fill property. Yeah, because before it was defaulting to black and then switching to the primary hue light only unchecked. Yeah, so it was black by default, and then it flipped over to the other one when it was set. Okay, let's figure out how to fix this. Okay, so this guy here. So on non-checked, I'm wondering if maybe this should be changed. wondering if this should be changed to be to include checked and unchecked or something. So on content. I'm wondering if on might be the better term. Track on background, track off background. How to do this correctly. If we have two separate brushes, then it makes our life easy because we can just toggle between them. Let's do it. Let's do it. I think rather than fighting with this, it's probably switch track on, background property, switch track on, get switch track on, switch track on, track on. Format, please. Oh, yuck. Please don't do that. Hey, not what I told you to do. Not what I told you to do. I gotta turn my white space back on. I turned it off while I was teaching, and I really like having white space turned on. Come on. Visual Studio. Fine. I know it's under this menu over here. It's something like Advanced View White Space. Thank you. Default values. I think unset is probably the best. In fact, I don't know if I even need that overload. I think that's probably switch track off, on, etc., etc., etc. Track off, switch track off background, track off background, switch track off. Okay, I think that's better. I think that's better. So let's come up back here. Switch track on. So that is the correct default there. This one here. Off. Value. Black. So now here's the question. Do I leave the opacity as part of the rectangle? It's hard-coded right here. So if you were to go through and override one of these brushes, this becomes off, and this becomes on. All right? If this goes through like this, how do I because I either need to apply it here. Do we have, let me just look, there might already be a converter for this. because this one we could look up in hard code, right? So we can figure out what 26% opacity is in hex, and then go through and just set this thing to the appropriate, 0 x, I don't know, 20 0 0 0 0 0 0, right? So we could effectively get this to black with some level of opacity on it. But that doesn't fix this one, because these are theme resources, and if we want to apply an opacity here, we then end up having to do some sort of binding where this is the source, right? And then converter, some opacity converter parameter, 0.26, right? We end up doing something like that. And we could even do the same thing with the black, just to make sure everything's kosher. Do we want to do that? I think I do. Let's. We're already going crazy. Let's just keep going here. Let's see. Brush round converter. No, that's not quite what we want. Brush to gradient. Whitespace Nazi. Go through and change all those tabs out because I can. Just trying to make sure that we don't already have something usable for this. Looks like the answer is no. So, new item. Add new. Let's see. Opacity brush converter. For those of you who are watching, I do have ReSharper turned off, and I'm struggling a little bit. I mean, IntelliCode is good, but it doesn't quite catch everything that ReSharper does, and it's really hard to justify not having it. But man, the speed of my Visual Studio is so much better. Okay, so we're going to make this an internal class because I don't feel like making this public API something for everyone to consume. If people find that unfortunate and you really want it, let me know. I'm happy to consider pull requests, but I'm going to kind of write this in a little more of a quick fashion rather than doing a bunch of error checking. So let's see. If value is, let's see. Oh, actually, if I do color first, this will be easier. Value is color. Actually, I think I can do this, can't I? Switch on value. Yeah, I think we can do this. Case, value, color, C. That's the right syntax, isn't it? Or is it? Just drop it, do that. That's what it is. And then case, solid, color, brush, boom. Like that. Let's see here. Color. Then we'll just break early. The default case will be return, binding, do nothing. Right? So early exit will just bail out. So color gets C in this case. Color gets brush.color. And then var opacity gets convert, change type. Come on, go look it up. Oh, right. This is because I'm in a convert method, it's going to be very unhappy with me for that. Okay, so parameter type of double will be intelligent culture info variant culture. So it doesn't matter what language we're in, we're going to expect a decimal place. Right? And use explicit type. And this will be a double. This will be a double. Again, this should probably have a little bit more error checking on it, but given that it's only going to be used in this one place and it's internal, a little less concerned about it. So let's see, we need to convert a percentage into a hex. So byte value gets 255 times opacity. Alpha. And then we want to trim you down to a byte. That's going to end up doing integer times double results in a double. We know we're going to keep this down as a percentage. Again, this should probably have error checking to make sure it's between 0 and 1 and not bigger or smaller, etc., etc. Byte alpha. And then we're going to return new solid color brush, and we're going to do color from ARGB, where our alpha is now set there. Let's see, color dot R, color G, color B. All right. Okay. So it's going to take in a percentage for our opacity, convert that to the appropriate byte value. We'll get our color from the ARGB code, shove that into a new brush, and away we go. Great. Awesome. We are cooking. Let's see, template resources. Well, we've already got resources here. Let's just dump it in. Let's see. Copy pasta. Copy pasta. And use converters. Great. X key gets that. I think what we do is we do, oh, we are going to need you at a higher level, aren't we? I'm going to need you in the style resources at least. Let's just keep you. Let's. I'm a little hesitant to pull it outside because this is really designed to just be used in here right now. So again, if we end up needing it elsewhere, I'll probably clean that API up to make it a little more resilient. Let's see, static resource, SD brush converter for the parameter 026, and let's do the same thing here for the black. I think this is probably just cleaner. Let's see, so source becomes, rather than dynamic resource, X, come on, X static, colors, black, boom, and too many closing braces. So that puts that there, that puts that there, and now I no longer need this here. Boom. So that goes away. Now the last thing I need to do, this is fine. This is setting, oh, you know what we could do? Well, grumble, 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 grumble. Let's do that. Because that makes the math a little bit easier. No more doing ARGB. Let's just set it on the brush itself. because I think that makes it a little clearer what's happening. Rather than doing math, we'll let the renderer figure it out for us. So still need the converter. Still going to create a new brush from it, but it's going to be a brush with the appropriate opacity. So that works there, that works there. This guy's still hard-coded to black, but I think this is okay because this is the disabled color, and I think this tracks. The one thing this doesn't do very nicely, and I might have to check it, is I suspect there's a problem between light and dark theme just having a hard-coded black with a particular value here. That usually doesn't end up working well. But that's a bug for a different day. Let's fire this guy up and see how he works. So I'd expect that on all of the existing toggles, I should now work appropriately with the light color brush and the black is what we should see. And then now that this is working appropriately and this is working appropriately, syntax error. What did I do wrong? Too many closing parens. Got it. Thank you. Try again. Part of me wishes that was real Mountain Dew right now, rather than just the water. Oh, Mountain Dew, I miss thee. Because if this gets in, this will be a nice little perk. And I realize I've now delayed on the 3.0 release for quite a while, and I apologize to everybody who's waiting on it. Switch toggle background. Of course it doesn't exist. Oh, background on background. And actually, let's go one step further. Let's make this a little more obvious. So red, green. So, oh, actually, I should do those in reverse. Green should be on. Red should be off. Just change this real quick. That'll make a little more sense. I don't care that it won't look right with all the color themes. The important part is that this shows off how to do custom track colors on the toggle switches. That's what matters. And if people want to go through and put the opacity in, 26% is the right answer. At least if you want to match the other ones. You are free to adjust and change as your heart desires. But the template will no longer be prescribing it for you. You are now in control if you want to set the brushes. Binding of dynamic resource can only be set on the dependency of... Oh, and there's the problem. Right, because I cannot set that like that. How to do this? Because I cannot actually do a brush that way. I could abuse the tag property, but I don't really want to do it at the root level control. I could move the converter down a level, but at that point it just applies. At that point it then just directly applies to the rectangle, and I might as well just set it once and be done. What is the correct solution here? Probably overthinking this. Let's just do this. So ignore everything I just said about the control not prescribing it on for you. We're gonna put it back. We're gonna put it back for now. And actually, I'm gonna put the opacity right next to the brush to make it really obvious. 26%. Because there is some other ones that I'm noticing up here that are being toggled for the ripple that are using that. So that's probably okay. Question mark. Maybe okay. I think it's acceptable. Again, if other people have different opinions about what about being able to control that, let me know. I guess I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to pulling this out as its own attached property, but I think ultimately what people are looking for is just being able to set that color. I'm not opposed to somebody revisiting this and cleaning up a little bit better, because it wouldn't be bad to have this brush have the appropriate opacity applied to it. How do you do that when you've got a dynamic brush that you want as the source, but you want to manipulate it slightly? I mean, normally what I would do is I would apply the dynamic resource onto like the tag property, and then I do a binding from the tag property onto the fill property with the converter specified in the middle, right? That way the dynamic resource updates one property, and then the converter runs as the go-between between property A and the actual one that I want. The problem is if I set the tag property here, that's very unusual behavior. A better thing, I think, would be to have an internal attached property that thing used. But you still have the problem of if the resource points to the attached property, that means it's going through a converter there, and it doesn't allow somebody to override it. Yeah, it's just kind of weird. The letting somebody override it is making it challenging. Okay, so red, green, red, green. These things switch. That's the purple, purple, gray, purple, gray. Excellent. That's a little better. Okay. I like it. Let's ship it. So step one, let's go and delete our other. Don't need you, don't need you. What's it called? The pasty brush converter. Delete. Okay. Okay. Everybody's favorite Git tool, Git Kraken, or at least my favorite Git tool. For those of you who missed it last week, I did a long stream on the basics of Git and using Git Kraken for Hacktoberfest. So if anybody's feeling like they want to up their game a little bit with it, go check it out. Okay, so there's that. Oh, we can eliminate these lines. So come on. Discard, discard, discard. Okay, so there's those three lines. That's great. Let's go down here and take a look. So this fixes the relative source on the template binding. Added a second brush, move the opacity up, flatten everything out. Great. Okay, what's the change down here? Assume just the binding property name. Yep. Okay. Toggle button assist, white space cleanup, white space cleanup, and then on and off. Great. Trying to decide if I need this. I don't think, at a minimum, I don't want this in this commit. So Let's see. Updating to have 2 brushes for the background. Updated demo to reflect change. Fixed binding air on the off background color. Great. Commit changes and pushy. Force push. Great. One of the perks of being the owner of the repo means I can force push into other repositories when people open pull requests, which is great. Wonderful. Okay. Okay, sorry, just checking some messages. Okay, let's take a quick look. Man, I'm looking at the time and thinking that the MAAP stuff might have to wait until later. That is a bummer because I was really hoping to get to it. Okay, the thing that I do want to look at, because this other pull request, let me just make sure this guy should have queued up. I just want to make sure the CI system passes, and then this should be good to go. So, but I'm going to wait until CI system runs just to make sure I didn't botch anything. Always good to double check yourself. Okay, but I would like to go back and revisit the issue here with the app config. Okay, so we added in these binding redirects, right? Let's turn this off. I want to rebuild, and then I would like to verify that I still hit the bug, because I did kick out an update to the Show Me the XAML library with all of the latest stuff, and I believe if we just update to that NuGet package, everything should work. But that is a theory that needs to be proven. Let's go look up that. Let's see here. NuGet.org. Take me there. Hey, did you ever update? If you didn't update, I might have to go check my pipeline to make sure you're still running okay. Oh, look at that. We got pretty hyperlinks. Yes. Pipelines are awesome. Yes. Yeah, if we can get these pointed at line numbers, that'll be slick. Boom. Thank you very much to whoever did that. That is a wonderful addition. Okay, show me the XAML. And it was specifically the Avalon edit, but all of these things, my pipeline revs them all together. So this was published 9 days ago. And I thought I had updated it inside the library, but clearly I haven't. So 110 CI 71. I just want to verify that this thing fails first. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rev the packet one. Yeah, because these are all pointed at 70, which is one build back. We will verify this still fails, because it's important to make sure that you're in a failing state first. And then we will go through and rev it, do the install, and verify that it fixes it. Because I hate having to have those binding redirects in there. Binding redirects are almost always a hack. Boom. Okay. Perfect. So failure case has occurred. Do this, save. And I believe if we do packet restore, it's install first. There we go. So grab that. Excellent. We're going to just close Visual Studio down and relaunch, only because MS Build keeps the processes running as a performance benefit. The problem being is my experience has been that with Packet, if you go through and make changes to a NuGet package that is used as the part of the MS Build pipeline, it doesn't let go of the file handles, and so you can end up running older versions of your MS Build task. So in general, whenever I update it, I try to just relaunch Visual Studio, or you can kill all your MS Build processes. It doesn't really matter. And it's not necessarily really a bug. It's just sort of, I guess, an artifact of the way the systems work. It's unfortunate, and it's part of the reason why Visual Studio does a NuGet package restore before doing the build, to avoid those kind of race conditions where a NuGet package wants to add itself to the MS Build pipeline, but the MS Build pipeline is what restored it, so it can't add. Because MS Build basically does a full parse to figure out what it's going to run and then runs it. And so if as part of running it, it goes to add something, well, it's already built up its plan of what it's going to do. You can't add to it at that point. Okay, so let's close these guys out. Close. And then we will, if this works, we'll just check in these packet changes. So I just want to check my dependencies and verify that this actually does show packages. Little bigger. Just want to see. That is not what I expected to see. I expect to see 71 there. So let's rebuild. That packet should have updated all of that stuff, and it showed that it pulled in the information. So installing NuGet packages, I'm guessing Visual Studio must just be out of its mind. Because I believe the issue was that the Avalon Edit version of Show Me the XAML was incompatible with the version of Avalon Edit here. I believe that was what was causing that issue. So we had a dependency mismatch. My NuGet versions didn't stop the mismatch from occurring, and so then things went boom. Still bothers me that these are still showing 70, not 71. Especially after Packet said it updated them. Just hypothetical. I just want to look. Here real quick. Show me the XAML Avalon Edit. Lib. That's fine. Which version do you have here? Here's your new. Is that the NuGet package? Here's the new spec. Let's just look at the new spec. Because you claim to have downloaded and installed a version. Which version is it? That version right there. Okay then. So then, where the heck are you getting your references from? Properties. Don't tell me I have an issue with my build configuration. Oh, this is my NuGet package cache. You don't have... No. Right? There's no way you're set up with a package config, right? Package references. You don't have a packages config. Let's look. I don't expect to see Show Me the XAML inside of this file. SMS build, blah, blah, blah. This is expected. I've got to believe this is a Visual Studio UI bug. Well, let's fire this up and see what happens. I have to believe that this version that is showing me here is a lie. Because the fact that it shows that the thing in the packages is set up correctly makes me really suspect of which version it's using. Okay, so toggles. Boom. Could not load. Uh, 60178. Okay, something is messed up, and I'm not sure what exactly it is. Okay, so let's look through this again. So this guy, I want to figure out why are you able to pull a reference from not? The fact that this guy's able to pull a reference from outside is a little disconcerting, because that shouldn't be possible. So what Packet ends up doing is adding in these extra targets files that it generates, which is how it's able to inject as part of it the pipeline. Like, for example, this MS build one is pointed at my packages directory. It's not looking anywhere else. Like, that's the one that's being loaded. This packet.package. Let's go look at this. Like, what the heck? I have to believe Visual Studio is just lying to me on the version that it's loading up. Hey there, what's new? I've watched your Keto Kaboo channel about your stream, Azure material design. Keep up the good work. I'm about to do design for your streaming. Cool. What type of design are you working on? A WPF app, or are you talking about like actual? I think I've seen you here before. Any chance you're not a bot? Let's see here. Show me. So this is a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't recall exactly where it is. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. Oh, here, right next door. Is this actually it? Packet files. Packet restore cached. Nope. Trying to remember where it is that it generates it from. Packet restore to, depends on, restore packages, blah, 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 execute command, do the packety things. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm a little baffled at this as to why this isn't getting updated. Especially when Packet claims that it is doing the install. Which makes me suspect that something is amiss. Nope, you are all set up appropriately. You are set up appropriately. Should look at why we have this included. I don't know what the dependency is that needs that. I'm baffled. Okay, one more Visual Studio kick and restart because this is really bothering me that it's not updating. Yeah, on both target frameworks, something is amiss. I am going to assume that this has to be a Visual Studio / packet confusion. Because I do not understand how it would be picking it up from the NuGet cache. I'm actually tempted to go blow away my cache real quick. If it still picks it up from there, I might go and do that. Blowing away that cache is probably it's a little abusive and will make my life miserable tomorrow, but it'll help me now. Basically, it means all my NuGet packages are going to get re-downloaded yet again. See, it still is convinced that it needs to pick up those packages. Which tells me that either where do you think you're coming from? Why are you okay with this? Where are you getting this version from? You don't have a packages config to pull from, right? Show all files. Just make sure it didn't generate something on me. Yeah, you don't have a packages config. You're the new project type, which means you shouldn't have any package references, which you don't, which is correct. What is going on? Packet restore targets, which means this guy looks to here and looks to pull in here. This packet restore targets. Okay. This packet targets file pulls in what? MS build, packet files, packet restore cached, packet lock file, packet exe. What is all of this doing? These are all just setting up packet exe path. packet command, bootstrapper command. What I'm looking for is an import. Let's see, using task, get file hash, verify file hash. Great, great. Where do you have any outputs? This is the packet restore targets. Let's see, turn off some warnings, regex some stuff. Great, great, great. Packet restore warning. Target frameworks. What are we doing here? Target frameworks, identity, packet resolved. Let's look at the target frameworks and see what that gets used for. So target frameworks iterate over packet intermediate output path, MS build path. That seems like it could be biting us if the intermediate path is set like that. Interesting. Okay. This guy restored all of the stuff and once again picked up the wrong one. I'm going to assume that the problem is in this intermediate path and that I don't want to think too hard. So git clean dfx, just like earlier. We'll just whack it. Whack it clean, force a brand new install, because typically the intermediate path on MS build is referring to your bin obj directory. Or I'm sorry, not your bin obj, your obj directory underneath your project structure. So let's see, then packet install. So if that's the case, this just whacked all of them. So if it was holding on to something, because it looked to me like packet was creating a file in that directory and was not detecting the change. And restore. Everyone's happy. Okay, so now we'll relaunch. We will make sure that this thing actually picks up the change, because I think I actually fixed this problem in the latest version of Show Me the XAML. The problem is I, for some reason, cannot get it to install that. Okay. Let's see what this guy does again. So under the dependencies, it has to once again go through and restore, which is fine. We expect that. We're going to kick off the build just to force packet to run again. Cache package. That's a little disconcerting. Really don't like that. Come on, I'd like to end this on a good note. Like to end this on a good note. It's nice to get a bunch of stuff merged and fixed, but still have more stuff to do. More stuff needed. And that should be the Show Me the XAML error. Come on. Show it to me. You don't want to show it to me? Okay, fine. I'll rebuild. There we go. Now it's picking up packages. Hey, look at that. Now there's a 71. Yeah, something was being held onto in one of those directories and being cached. Don't know where, don't know what. Not entirely sure. At some point I need to figure out the actual answer so that I don't have to just nuclear option every time and blow away the whole directory. But we will see. Come on, rebuild, rebuild. Rebuild so we can end on a happy note and make me happy. Again, I might go and review this data set extensions. I'm not entirely sure what this is being used for. Be nice to get it off of a preview build too. I don't think it's actually set up as a dependency, so it must just be something in the demo app. Because I know it's not a dependency of the NuGet package, so it has to be a demo app thing. I'm curious what in the demo app is needing it. And specifically if anything's needing it to be on that preview release. Okay. Now we got all kinds of stuff. Now we're broken beyond belief. Great. Try one more time. Now that you've restored. Oh boy, we got a ton of warnings. You go through each of these and take a look at them. Some of these though are design time warnings and I don't actually care to fix them. A lot of these, the ones that are specifically in like the My App stuff, not really a big deal for me right now. Some of these warnings just look like they're there because the base library failed to compile, so like color zone doesn't exist. Well, I'm pretty sure it actually does. I expect this number to go down shortly. Come on, rebuild, get yourself into a happy state. I really want to prove that I actually fixed the assembly issue. Really would like to prove that. While we're waiting for that, I kind of want to just look at the NuGet package and verify what the dependency version range was I set. Because I very explicitly went and checked it. So Avalon edit less than 6.1 but greater than 5.9. This probably should have been greater than or equal to 6.0. This should have been an inclusive lower bound. Add that to my list of things I should go fix. But I believe Avalon edit is being restored at 6.0, which is great. That should work. Yes. Okay. And once again, because I cleared it, it forgot which end was up. All this just to prove that I don't need a binding redirect in my app config. So I'm pretty sure it's fixed now. Pretty sure. So I went and revved all of the versions, so it should just work. Let's go with, say, toggles. Huzzah! We are fixed and working again. Great. We're just going to check this guy right on in. Let's see. Updating. Show me the XAML to no longer need binding redirect. Commit and probably shouldn't be pushing straight to master. Should probably pull requests and let the build system do its thing, but It's late, and I want to get this last pull request merged in. So where did that guy go? You are now... Let's see. Thanks for the contribution. Realized my initial directions were wrong and made some updates. Ba-boom. Because that really was my mistake on the initial stuff. So 3.0, great. Squash merge. And let's see, 14.08, which I think is this one. This guy's already there. Ding, ding, ding. And closed. And that is all in and done now. And now we are a little bit closer on the 3.0 stuff. So there's a couple issues in here that may end up getting punted. So there's a few things in here about like this pop-up box is closed after being opened that I'm still trying to get good reproduction for because I can't make it happen. I need to play around with it more on my Surface Go just to see if that triggers it, because that would be really helpful if I could actually get this going. But Magnus has put in a lot of good debugging information to try and help track it down, and also this disable transition. So Magnus, if you're watching this, I'm curious if this actually helped, because I know we merged some changes in for this, to see if that actually, if it ended up just being a timing problem. But that is worth checking on. So with that said, I think this guy is probably one of the top ones, and then getting the Ma app stuff, which isn't reflected in here, and I should probably get an issue logged for it. But all of the Ma apps 2.0 updates, the integration library, let's see, not the demos, not the web, come on, close this library here. This guy needs to be updated for Ma apps 2.0, and all of the brushes changed, which isn't too big of a hassle. They basically renamed all of their brushes to follow a nice consistent naming scheme, which is great. I approve. And the problem is we just now need to update all of our stuff to match the new naming scheme. So shouldn't be too terribly difficult. Would be nice to go through and get it in, but it is what it is for now. So, but with that said, it is about that 2-hour mark, and I'm feeling the effects of that cold from this weekend. So with that, I am going to be signing off for the night. Again, if people have questions,